Okay, we're going in five, four, three. Howdy, I am CharLee Simons. Right here on Do Not Talk, talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and politics. One decides what life's going to be like here on Earth, the other one decides what it's going to be like when we leave it. I don't think we should ever stop talking about those things, but we did. And we became the silent majority. I hate that. I'm not going to stay silent. I'm a delegate with the California State Republican Party through a candidate delegate, as they call it, with Rudy Rosselli, who lost his race in Northern California to a man who just turned 79 years old, John Garamendi, 79. Oh, and by the way, last year he was diagnosed with a rare blood cancer, but yet he won again in California. What? What the hell? What's wrong with my own state? Have you ever watched? You know who Alex Newman is? He's fantastic. You got to look him up. Look up Alex Newman. You'll find him on Rumble. Forget YouTube. I'm all about rumble.com/do-not-talk. Rumble.com/do-not-talk is where you find me. It's a free speech platform that rivals YouTube. It's not the size of YouTube, at least not yet, but it's getting there. And I'm grateful for it because we're able to actually still talk to you. We in the alternative media, which I never thought I would be. I've been in the radio and television business my entire life. Suddenly I'm part of the alternative media. So we're all out there trying to bring you as much truth and just get you thinking a lot of times. Now, I'm just a good old boy from Bakersfield. I like to introduce myself to people who are smarter than I am, which is not that tough. Alex Newman is one of those people, brilliant. So is Sam Anthony from yournews.com. I got them both on this show. It's going to be a kick. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. And please share this show. And if you can let people know they can help this show too, you can do that by liking the show right now, wherever you're watching it. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, and then it's going to be on rumble.com/do-not-talk. You like it, you hit that like button, you help the show grow. And if you'll subscribe or follow the channel, doesn't cost you anything, especially on Rumble, doesn't cost you anything. Follow that, please, and we're building. And financially, that little QR code, that takes you right to venmo.com/do-not-talk, venmo.com/do-not-talk. Buy me a cup of coffee, buy me a tank of gas. And in California, that's a significant investment, a tank of gas. And also, Give, Send, Go, /do-not-talk. It's really fun being on there. That's the nation's only conservative, Christian, nonprofit fundraising site. And go there, would you please, and help if you can. Give, Send, Go, /do-not-talk. My dog Spike is here, and we're ready. This is his little spot. He's always right there. That's his place. Hello, buddy boy. Glad you're here. He got to go to the ocean yesterday. That's fun. Do you know Brian Higbee on Newsmax? Check out what he did.
Like the world took off on some weird path down this like cultural upside down where everything you once knew about America has basically been lit in fire and they flush the ashes down the toilet. You ever feel like you're just screaming at your TV because we here in America just invent stupid stuff to be mad about? I'm there. Consider this next few minutes like deeply therapeutic for me, but I just got to get some of this stuff off my chest. And the wokies, if you're hyperventilating, wearing a mask alone in your car on your way to yoga or whatever you do in your off time, you can freak out all you want. I'm done staying silent on all this social justice groupthink. They can call me bigoted or uncultured or whatever other istophobic, phobophobe thing they come with. I'm so far beyond caring about anything these people say. You know what I do care about? That the government knows more about me than I do about them. And they work for me. And I have a Fourth Amendment right, and they apparently don't even care about that. That Congress can sit there and tell me a bold-faced lie all day, but if I lie to them, it's a felony. I don't feel too represented by that. And those same people printing money, saddling my children with debt so they can ship pallets of cash to countries that hate us, some of which turned around and go buy weapons that are used on American service members. Then nothing happens. It's just my take. Any country that can afford to send money from its citizens to other countries is taxing its citizens a little bit too much. All the while seemingly not caring that everything here costs more. People can't afford their mortgages and are having their homes taken away. Meanwhile, squatters are moving in rent-free while the homeowners get arrested for changing their locks. Then I got to listen to KJP go up there and tell me how good the economy is doing. It's not. Stop gaslighting me. Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. I see this with my own two eyes. Look, I pay your salary, lady. And then the salaries of these government employees that on average, by the way, make 40% more than their civilian counterparts. KJP, this woman, for doing nothing well in her entire life, makes $174,000 a year. She hasn't given me one straight answer since she stepped up to that podium, I don't know how long, it seems like 40 years long, by the way things are going. Oh, Carl, you seem so, I am angry. I'm really angry. I have had enough of this crap. I feel like a second-class citizen in my own country, while illegal immigrants invading my homeland get handed $1,400 debit cards. You get an iPhone 15 and free hotel rooms. It's like an Oprah scene. You get a car, and then you get a car, but we as citizens get nothing. American citizens are on the street because we're getting evicted from our homes, because we can't pay our mortgages, because we're losing our jobs to some machine that was automated after some bureaucrat decided to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, and now companies can't afford to keep people employed. We got 20 veterans a day killing themselves. Others are sleeping on trash bags after fighting a 20-year war for our country's military-industrial complex, only to turn the country.
Carl Higbee on Newsmax. I called him Brian earlier. My apologies. Carl Higbee. What a great job. Hello, Sam Anthony. What's up, Bubba?
How you doing, Charlie? Good to be here again.
I'm borderline amazing. Our last show got over 120,000 views. That was pretty exciting. And the man of the hour, Alex Newman. Hello, partner.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for being had. You do extraordinary work. And what's the name of your channel again? Liberty what?
Liberty Sentinel.
Liberty Sentinel. You get amazing guests on there. You're doing really well. How long have you been in podcasting?
Well, I first started doing some video work almost a decade ago when I realized about half of American adults can't read. Thought, we got to reach those people too. And so it's been growing and growing steadily since then. Now we do about 5 or 6 shows. And it's a good way to reach people who otherwise, we're not going to read a magazine or a newspaper. So.
Well, you talk to Sam Anthony, he goes, that is the future. Regular media as we know it is dead or dying. Right, Sam? Am I wrong in that?
Listen, Alex and I had that conversation. I think you said to me you were looking to buy a radio or a TV station, right? That's a big mistake, but
but then yet Alex Soros was able to finagle his way and buy some people off in the FCC and purchase in one fell swoop George Soros rather. I'm sorry, what did I say? Alex Soros? That's his son, right?
It's his evil son, yes.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well,
no relation, I swear.
No, of course not. 200 radio stations across the country, and most of them Spanish language. Mm-hmm. If radio's dead, as everyone keeps saying, why would the Soroses be purchasing them?
Well, I could give you an answer. It was probably spent with taxpayer dollars from USAID, but Alex, you could answer this better than me. I mean, I just don't trust anything that's happening with these people anymore.
No, and that's, I think, a wise decision. These people are not to be trusted. But as for why Soros would be interested in Spanish language radio, I think the reason is pretty clear. The Democrat strategy to fundamentally transform the United States of America really looks a lot like the strategy they used to fundamentally transform California. Create a coalition of people who don't have the same understanding, the same respect that Americans have for our constitutional system, for our Declaration of Independence, try to bring them all into a big coalition and use that to fundamentally transform the country. Now, I grew up in Latin America. I learned Spanish before I learned English, but I can tell you Hispanics are moving away from the Democratic Party. They're having a crisis in this strategy. If you look at the data, about 45% of Hispanics in the United States voters voted for Donald Trump. They're in a panic right now, and they know that as long as Hispanics in America have other avenues for information. And talk radio was a big one, right? Almost every week I go on one of the biggest Spanish language talk radio stations in Miami. There are other ways for them to get information than Univision and some of these left-wing propaganda outlets. And so Soros and the establishment that he represents are in a panic, and they're trying to buy up those last few options.
Yeah, and they probably got pennies on a dollar too, because everybody's getting rid of radio stations right now, at least trying to. The business is not hiring; they're firing. That's why I kept saying Soros is buying 200, at least 200 radio stations across the country, all at the same time. Well, first of all, why is that even being allowed by the FCC? I didn't think that kind of stuff could happen, but yet it did. And what's the whole idea behind it? And it's to reach those people that the Republican Party, for the most part, I think, has not reached out to. And that is predominantly the Hispanic population, with anywhere from 20 to another guest that Sam and I had on one time, Gil Maza. He's a retired Border Patrol agent. He says there's 50 million. 50 million. That shapes the future. That changes the demographic and the dynamic of what you're able to do and what kind of message you're able to get out. And the Republican Party, at least out here in California, I'm a delegate, and I vote next March 16th, Sunday. I'm going to be voting to try and replace as many of those on the executive committee as possible, because they've been a dismal failure in my state. Are you getting those kind of things in Florida where you are, or are you all, everything's good and fine, and Ron DeSantis is your fearless leader forever?
Sam, you want to start, and I'll chime
let
in
you
after.
answer that. I mean, this is your game.
Very good. Well, I'm very familiar with the Republican politics in my state of Florida. In fact, I'm a precinct committee man, so I'm involved in this process at a low level. And there's been an internal struggle within the RPOF, just like there has been in Republican parties all across the United States, between the true conservatives, the MAGA types, the constitutionalists, the more Christian wing of the party, and the globalists, the rhino, the establishment wing of the party. And that has been a tension for a very long time. Here in the county where I live, which I won't mention, that burst into like full-blown war, where we had something like 6 out of the 7 Republican clubs in our county actually left the RPOF, the Republican Party of Florida, and affiliated with either the Republican Liberty Caucus or the Republican Assemblies, which Reagan used to call the conscience of the Republican Party. And that rift has still not been fully healed. There are efforts now to bring everybody together and, let's bury the hatchet and focus on the real problem instead of fighting each other. But that struggle's been going on within the Republican Party all the way back to, Taft. And I don't imagine it's going away anytime soon.
Is that, how much of that is infiltration?
I think a lot of it is. And, to go back to USAID for a minute, Sam mentioned the propagandists that we're feeding at the USAID trial. William Kristol, right? Neo-Trotskyite father, leader of the neoconservative movement, founder of the garbage magazine Weekly Standard. That the whole purpose of that was to try to spew left-wing propaganda in a Republican marketing package and get Republicans on board with endless war, globalism, big government, and all the rest of it. And they're being exposed right and left. I mean, the guy's magazine went bankrupt despite all of the taxpayer funding. Now he just goes on Twitter and complains about how Biden was a better candidate than Trump. So they're in some real big trouble right now, but absolutely we're dealing with infiltration here. These are not people who were ideologically Republican, as in line with the Republican Party platform, and just had a few differences of opinion. These were people who were way out in left field and thought, hey, it's not enough to just control the Democrat platform. We got to control the Republican Party as well, and then tried to disguise themselves as Republicans. And they've been exposed, I think, in a very major way over the last few years.
Not here in California yet, though.
Not yet.
We've had some extremely, thank you, Lord, for some great inroads. And I know that you're a believer as well, Alex, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm praying for Sam's salvation, because he's a heathen still. But I wanted to.
I'll join you in those prayers.
Okay, good. They are the left and those who have infiltrated the Republican Party. To put a bottom line on it, they are doing their father's work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. They fully are doing the devil's work. And what's in it for them? Are people getting paid to infiltrate? I know that the Republican chair, that used to be a volunteer position, and she's wrangled her way into $250,000 per year salary, not including expenses. About $350,000 she's getting paid now to run this party into the ground. There's got to be money, Alex, isn't it? Isn't that always the motivating factor for these evil people?
Of course, it's huge money available, and destroying the United States of America and looting it before you finish destroying it is big business. I mean, there are cronies all over the place, like piglets at the trough, feeding and trying to take what they can from our country before, in their view, it crashes to the ground. So they've got to be exposed, and there is so much money in this. I mean, Soros is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the money. There's money coming from all over the place. A lot of it from the government, as Sam pointed out, their USAID and things. Hopefully, some of that's going to be getting shut down. But there's the money element, and then there's the power element, right? If you really read the Republican Party platform, it's not consistent with a power monger, somebody who just wants power for power's sake. And so the people coming in are trying to sound conservative. They talk conservative, but then you look at what they do when they get to Washington, D.C., and we could name names all day long. I mean, they talk super conservative when they're out on the campaign trail. Then they get to Washington, D.C., and the party gets started, and they vote just like the Democrats do. So there's the money, there's the power, and I think some of these people are just frankly evil, and they're serving their father. So,
Yeah, exactly right. Sam has a great theory, which I hope comes true, especially now with Robert Kennedy Jr. running the Health and Human Services, and that is what happens when they make it illegal, like it used to be. You used to not be able to advertise prescription drugs on television, radio, newspaper. What's going to happen if they take away that power of the drug companies to be able to advertise again, Sam?
It's a house of cards. Alex and I have talked about it. You've talked about it. There's the audience is dwindling. Certainly the lying doesn't help, but it doesn't. But no matter what, we had this conversation, Alex. The younger generation just doesn't watch TV or listen to radio the traditional way. What we're doing right now is technically the new TV, right? And then podcasts that are audio are the new radio, because you could listen as you want, or you could watch it anytime you want. It's just where everything's headed. It's not a secret. So all those things are going away, but I don't know the percentage. If somebody could tell me what the percentage is of the ad revenue that's from pharmaceuticals, I know it's significant. But when you pull that money, the whole house of cards comes down, because now this is why, all these people were dying, but they couldn't say a word, because the person paying the money, this is where, RFK Jr. was correct. There's a conflict of interest. If your product's killing people, the news media should say something, but they couldn't say anything because they lose their money. So,
which was the whole idea, I believe, back in the 90s with Bill Clinton, championing deregulation of ownership rules for media. They took away that local aspect, which is how it used to be by law. You could only have a certain amount of radio and newspaper and television stations, and depending on the size of the market, nobody could dominate any one market. And now we have three companies basically deciding everything you're going to see, read, and hear. It's catastrophic, so it has to die. It has to go away if we're ever going to make any inroads, Alex.
yeah. And I was actually just looking up pharmaceutical spending on ads. It's massive. And I think that's why they have been able to manipulate the media narrative so successfully. If COVID taught us anything, it's that big pharma is in bed with big government, is in bed with big media, and they're all working against us. So, anybody who turns on a TV, and I don't necessarily recommend that you do, it's mostly garbage and psychological warfare, if not psychological terrorism.
Yes.
Anybody can see this, and even on the radio, drug ad, vaccine ad, vaccine. And the reality is they are not even really doing that to sell drugs, right? How many people are going to go into their doctor and say, hey, I think I have restless leg syndrome. I need this drug. I think one of the big reasons for doing that is to control the editorial policies of these publications and get them to lose their independence.
That's exactly it. That I knew that was going to be the death of broadcast television and radio as we know it when they deregulated the ownership rules. I said it then. I wish I were wrong, but that has absolutely happened. Sam's right. They own your silence. And one of the worst things the media does, one of the biggest lies they tell, is by never telling you anything, period. They lie by omission.
Right.
What's your background, Alex? How did you get started in all this? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, thank you. So I've been in journalism my entire career post college. I went into the College of Journalism at one of the best colleges of journalism in the country, mostly because writing was the only thing I really knew how to do. I wasn't particularly good at math or any of that other stuff. So I got into writing. In retrospect, I see the hand of divine providence there. And early on in my career, I started working for establishment newspapers. I was even in college. I was writing for a newspaper owned by the New York Slimes. And they would totally butcher my stories. I would write a very fair, very balanced story. I'd interview people on all sides of the issue that had legitimate perspectives and credentials. And the good stuff would get totally cut out and thrown out, and the propaganda would get moved to the top.
Right.
This is not going to work for me. So I started reaching out to other outlets that seemed like more viable places where the truth could be published, and ended up working with a lot of really, really great publications over the years. And actually, while I was in college, I started a college newspaper with some of our friends for the same reason. There was no legitimate news outlet in our area where you could find the truth or where you could report the truth. And as a news consumer and a journalist, a budding journalist, an aspiring journalist, I thought this is intolerable. So I got together we with some friends. We started a newspaper called the Liberty Sentinel of North Central Florida. We went and sold ads. The thing rocketed. I mean, within a few months, we went from 5,000 initial print run to 15,000. We were paying ounces of silver to our writers, and we eventually shut that down. But that continued. I still have the company today, and I'm just really, really passionate about journalism, because you cannot have a free society if people don't have reliable, accurate, and local information. Right? Everybody's focused on the fake media or what's going on in Washington, D.C. And so that's why I think what your news is doing is so critical, not just, for the media industry, which I do care about, but more importantly for society itself. Without information, good, accurate, honest information at the local level, your free system of government, your free institutions will die on the vine. And I'm very concerned that that's the direction America's heading.
You are one of those folks that I am just so proud to know, because you fought against a business that did everything they could to shut you down and shut you up. Were you always on the conservative side of things, or what was the catalyst? What was the moment that you realized, oh, I think I've been on the wrong side on all of this so far?
It's kind of ironic. I was very liberal. I varied from anarchist to Marxist to everything in between. In my high school days, very bad student. I got kicked out of high school, all kinds of problems. And then I got to college, and all these university professors are like trying to brainwash me with left-wing propaganda. I was like, wait a minute, what? This is ridiculous. So I started reading and learning about how the Federal Reserve works, and learning all the stuff that you're not supposed to learn about. And that's when it became obvious to me we were being lied to about everything that. And my instinct was kind of to push back. So the more left-wing propaganda they tried to push on me, the further the other direction that drove me. Then I came to know the Lord, and the rest is history. But yeah, it was in college where I had a real awakening and saw that we had been lied to so massively, and that those old stodgy conservatives were actually right about most stuff. So.
I really appreciate Sam, Anthony, and yournews.com, because you can hyper focus locally, and that's been a frustration for me out here in California when I watch the media that I've been a part of my whole life completely shut things down and shut up, not tell you about stuff that's going on the right and growth and inroads, because this at one point was a solidly red state, and it has been infiltrated and abused and screwed. And we're done. We're collapsing. I mean, Sam offers a platform where you can hyper report on things locally, just in your zip code. If you want to find out what's going on with the high school football game or whatever, that's exciting. But also statewide, regionally, nationally, and even worldwide, you get all of it, and all of us are on one platform. And Alex, I understand you're on there now too, and that's exciting.
Yep, absolutely. And just recently joined as an advisor, and we're putting our stuff up there. And I am incredibly enthusiastic about this. When Sam started explaining to me how this worked, and he showed me on Zoom the technology, is like, no way, this guy's sitting on like the most revolutionary thing in the news media since maybe the printing press. Like, this is huge. And that'll be very apparent to anybody who sees how this works. And after dealing with the lying, dishonest local news media for so many years, it was obvious to me that this was a dying industry. I didn't quite know what was going to replace it. is it going to be nonprofit journalism?
Right.
Is it going to, different business
Just a bunch of
models?
us little guys out here going, hey, wait, listen, look what's going on. But we're just a tiny little sliver, a little voice in the wilderness. And Sam has brought it together to where we're having a national, even worldwide platform, which is awesome. Thank you, Sam, for that, making that happen. Where do we go from here, do you think?
Well, I mean, that's easy. So we just need to keep scaling, onboarding. This is where the capital raise comes in, because I don't care what company you're part of. If, Amazon, Netflix, Uber, Facebook, none of them would exist if they weren't funded. So this really needs the capital resources to scale. The good news is the marketplace is ripe. I mean, there's a massive void that needs to be filled, and all we're doing is coming in behind and filling them. So I'm not looking to replace or to put the legacy media out of business. That's going to happen anyway. What we need to do is just come in underneath them. And if you can see my hands, you just come in underneath them, and over time, as they disappear, this will become the next mainstream media. Everybody gets this at this point. When Alex saw it, the first thing he did was say, I want to send you my resume, right? And I'm thinking to myself, and I honestly, I thought he was content creator. We could bring him on the platform. We'll just add more people. And when I looked at his resume, I sent it to my partner. I go, you got to be kidding me. And she goes, I know who he is. She goes, and he's interested in joining us. She's like, I said, yes. She's like, well, take him. Right. That's what she said. So the whole world is coming our direction. The beauty of this, and, everybody, at least in our world, says that the legacy media is lying and nobody trusts them anymore. And rightly so. Okay. Because when you start taking money from the government, nobody can ever trust you again. I mean, that in itself is over. Okay. So, now at least why they're pushing in a narrative and an agenda. It's absolutely ridiculous. So ultimately, it's good riddance to them. They're not going to survive. We just need to expand at an accelerated pace. So instead of bringing on 100 news reporters in the next month, we bring on 3,000. Okay, that's going to create a whole nother set of problems, which is great problems, because all that content drives traffic, right? Because that's how the whole thing works. Somebody posts a story, they share it on their social media pages, people come to consume it, and they get a percentage of the ad revenue. That's the model moving forward. I'm 100% accurate in this. I've been doing this forever. So I can tell you what'll work and what won't work, simply because I failed in every direction we went. This is the model that actually works, and we need to win this game, simply because this is not a product that needs to be in Sam's hands or in Alex's hands or even in your hands, CharLee. It needs to be in the people's hands. This needs to be owned by the people. I'm serious. I'm not even making that up. Look, I'm 60 years old. I mean, how many years do I got left? I mean, I've got grandkids. CharLee, you probably have them too, right? You're not old enough to have them, Alex, but you don't want your kids growing up like this. You don't want this kind of world. So, with the legacy media dying, and if they pull that money from the pharmaceutical ads, it won't take long before they're hemorrhaging money. When I say long, like a month. Okay. Now, they have billionaires that own these, and they can prop them up for a while. But ultimately, it's all just going to start bleeding downhill. And I promise you, nobody's going to be sitting here going, wait a minute, there's still one guy watching the show. I mean, they'll pull it long before that happens. And all we're doing is just picking up the slack. Now, I was on with two people from Canada today, and they were begging me to start a Canadian edition. Like, we could bring the people, because we can't, like, if it's a Canadian website, they cannot push news out there or they'll get arrested.
Right. Brad Wilder. I had him on the show. He's a broadcaster and podcaster. And he literally said, CharLee, you realize the only people who are seeing me in Canada are going to be somebody who might be watching your show. He is literally prohibited from actually podcasting in his own country.
Yeah, you can't do it. So on our platform, they can do it. So that's the cool part. So they're looking at this like, how can I? And so, Alex, this is where money comes in to bring in people, simply because there's laws in other countries. Like, you have to abide by their laws. Now, the question is, are we a platform, or would they consider us news media? Okay. I don't know which way it's going. I mean, I know we're a platform, but do you have to register? Or we're not buying yournews.ca. We have yournews.com. So basically, we can tell everybody to go to hell at that point. So I think that it's better we have conversations with lawyers that understand this stuff and we could figure something out, a plan moving forward. But for us to put up Canada, which would be the easiest version, because all their news is put up there. These people all look at US news. They still watch ice hockey and watch our basketball and everything else. So that's an easy one to do. And to get that up and running would take about an hour. That's it. And you'd have all the provinces, all whatever however they live, zip codes or whatever it is. Yeah, we could have it up and running in no time. And then when people log in, it just geolocates them to Alberta or Ontario or whatever it is. We just have to make sure we're complying properly. That's all I want to do. But in the meantime, they could submit that stuff to us and share it out.
Well, Alex, that's how these platforms like Facebook and so on have gotten away with editorializing content by deleting us, taking us off, taking us down, is because they push themselves as well. We're just a platform. We're not actually a news group, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting because it depends on who is asking them. Right. If they want protection from government in one way, they'll say, oh, we're just a platform. We're not responsible for what people post. But then when you post stuff there that exposes them and their masters, et cetera, and it's, oh, well, we're a company. We're a private company. We can do whatever we want. We can make editorial decisions about what content we're going to host and what we're not. So they want to both ways. And of course, that's very difficult. But part of it, too, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these big tech companies were started with major support from what Donald Trump today calls the deep state, right? Whether we're looking at DARPA, whether we're looking at InQtel, the investment arm of the intelligence community, they provided in many cases the capital that made that work. They provided, in some cases, even the technology that made these things work. And that incestuous relationship there between big government and big tech has been there since the very beginning. And I think we saw the danger of that during the Biden administration with the COVID, where I was getting my videos deleted, and in many cases, my accounts taken off platforms just for interviewing world-class doctors who were
Same
saying,
here.
"A minute here, this is not right." So yeah, it's just crazy. But I do think that the American people, especially, but also people in other places, saw through that, and the pushback was incredible. So that was encouraging.
Can you give me some light at the end of the tunnel? Sam says that California is going to collapse, period. Nothing we can do about it, and it has to happen. The government numbers, almost $80 billion in debt, so I'm sure it's quite worse than that. The legislature here passed a law that the state of California cannot declare bankruptcy, which that's a good trick. That is, they did that. That is, when we have so many illegals here voting, and the motor voter law that Jerry Brown enacted by letting illegals have legal driver's licenses, and then saying, oh, by the way, if you have a driver's license, you can register to vote, but not you illegals. Wink, wink. And I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Even if we can repair our own Republican Party and get us back on track and stop trying to compromise with the left, how do we win? Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for the fifth largest economy in the world?
Well, I go to California pretty regularly, and I meet some real fighters who are on the front lines of trying to push back on this. And I tell people across the United States, we actually have a lot to learn from those guys because they've been fighting the battles that we're going to be fighting next year. They were fighting those years ago. So they know the ins and outs. They know how this goes. And I've been encouraged by some of what I have seen. I think if we could deal with the vote fraud, if we could deal with the illegal immigration, if we could expose the financial problems, even in California, people are not okay with the trans mania. Even Democrats are not okay with that. So I think if we could deal with a few of these key issues, there would be a way back from the brink for California. A lot's going to depend on the people of California themselves, of course, whether they're willing to do what needs to be done. But the Trump administration's in an interesting situation right now. I mean, we don't want to have the federal government dictating to states what they must do. That historically has never been constitutional. I mean, the Supreme Court even ruled in the very important case Prince versus the United States that the states and the local governments, they're not just like administrative units of the federal government, but through the power that the federal government does have, even just the bully pulpit that Donald Trump has, a lot of really good things could happen there. So I don't think we should write off California just yet. There are some real fighters there doing some really important work. And if we could handle just a few key things like the voter fraud, I think there would be a much brighter future for the state of California.
I agree with them. I mean, the problem is the voter fraud, if you can handle it. But these people don't want to give up power.
Right.
So to me, if you're not going to give up power and nobody could ever win because you got a rigged system, then, the only thing Trump could do is just, stop any federal dollars from going over there. And eventually they're going to say, okay, gas is going to be $20 a gallon and then $30 a gallon. And, then they're just going to start raising taxes all across the board to try and cover this nut. But ultimately, again, it's a house of cards. They spent all the money and they can't pay it back. And that's the end. So it has to collapse. There's no other way to,
they're all hoping for a federal bailout, right? Illinois, California. When you look at the pensions, just the pensions for the government bureaucrats, California, Illinois, New Jersey, they're so far underwater. There is no way that they can make that right. They're going to have to be honest with folks and say, look, we promised you stuff that there is no possible way. Even if we took everything from everyone, we couldn't pay out all this money that we promised all you people. So we're going to have some cutbacks on the spending. Everybody's going to have to take a haircut. Donald Trump and the Republican Congress are not going to be taking money from the folks in Oklahoma and the folks in Florida to bail out a bunch of irresponsible political clowns in California and Illinois. And we're just going to all have to face reality. Yes, there's going to be pain. There's going to be lots of pain for lots of people. That's what happens when you cook the books and do these kinds of stupid things. But it's got to be done. There's no other alternative.
Can I say something on that?
Please.
He's perfect on what he said. The issue is they're never going to admit that it was their fault and they cooked the books. They're going to say it's Donald Trump's fault. That's all they're going to say. He's not given the aid, so we had to use this in order to do this. And they're going to blame everything on everybody else. The truth is, I mean, when was the last time you saw anybody rob a bank and say, hey, it was me? I mean, I didn't do it. So it's not. He's right. I mean, that's how it should be done. Look, we've been stealing your money for years, but now we're going bankrupt. But honestly, I'm here to fix it now. And here's what we need to do. But you're going to have to be paid. By the way, I'm raising my salary just because I want to make sure I can pay for the gas prices because we're going to have to raise them on you. None of that stuff is ever going to be said because the people are just going to go nuts. It's always just going to be pointing fingers. That's the issue. So when the country collapses, or when the state collapses, that's when you come in and you maneuver things and get rid of the illegals and you say, look, we're not giving you any money till you fix all these problems. Because why is it the other 49 states have to pay for your problems that you created? Why does my money in Florida have to go to pay for your pensions that your people stole from you? That ain't right. No. So you're going to see the house of cards have to come down. I just don't see them. Alex, you're right. I mean, that's really what happened. I just don't see them admitting to it. I'd say, I mean, you didn't see the Gavin Newsom thing with Charlie Kirk, but he was just, it was just more. What is the word I'm looking for? The gaslighting. I mean, do you believe that men should be in women's sports? Well, it's not fair. But yeah, he believes it. So it's all BS. I'm not going to say what it is. It's just, I'm just biting my tongue.
We all know what it is.
That is Sam Anthony from YourNews.com and Alex Newman from the Liberty Sentinel. Alex, one of my favorite scriptures, and this is what powers me and powers this show, is Ephesians 5:11, which is be no part of the works of darkness, but instead even expose them. We keep exposing things, but yet we have half the population or more that either doesn't want to hear it or can't be bothered. And so they will just continue same old until how much pain does there have to be before they say, oh, well, shoot, I've been making the mistake all this time. Sam's right. They don't. They're moving into the area from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm close to that. And they're all moving in here and they bring their politics with them. I'm going, you destroyed where you lived. How come you come here and continue voting and thinking the same way?
Charlie, a large portion of the state was burning and they wouldn't put water in the reservoirs. What does that tell you? Because of that one fish that they couldn't find that might still be alive.
The Delta smelt, yes.
Yes. So they're not fixing anything. They're not here to fix anything. They're here to rape and pillage and to take as much money as they can. And, people are starting to find out about it. And eventually they're going to have to be gone. It's like It's like what was happening with USAID with all that money being funneled out, right? I mean, where's it going? It's not going to what they're saying it's going to. It's all BS. It's all going funneled into other accounts, which right now it's a conspiracy, but everything has to start as a conspiracy. Why would somebody take hundreds of billions of dollars and move it to the dumbest things imaginable unless they were getting paid for it? So all they were doing was just completely collapsing the United States. My guess is they changed the money into euros and every other thing, and they have offshore accounts in a bunch of different places so they can get on a plane and go and live a good lifestyle while the U.S. suffers. This is a guess, obviously, but give it another 12 months, and I would imagine they'll have all the information to start making arrests, and they'll say, well, this person put all this money over here. I mean, give me a break. What's her name? Jasmine Crockett? She's been in power for 2 years. I think she's been in Congress. She's worth $10 million. And when she got in, she was worth $29,000. Okay. Mathematically impossible. Okay. Mathematically
very dirty things
impossible.
going on. Alex, off topic, but something that you mentioned earlier, and I'm very interested in it, and I want to see its demise. That is the Federal Reserve, which people automatically assume it's a government agency and a government program. It's not. It's not. But yet they're borrowing, they're taking money from us and giving us money back. They're loaning it out, our own tax dollars. The whole Ponzi scheme is corrupt and horrific, and has changed the landscape of our nation and ultimately the world. Donald Trump is talking about putting an end to it. How possible is that?
Well, I've been really impressed by what I've seen Donald Trump saying on these issues for literally a decade. I mean, I went back and I read an article I wrote in 2016 when he was talking about the desirability of going back to honest money backed by gold or something of value. When he was taking gold as payment for leasing some office space to a company. And he was talking about what had been done to our dollar over all these years. Now he's talking about going to audit the gold at Fort Knox, which is admittedly a small percentage of the gold that the U.S. government allegedly has. Donald Trump knows a whole lot more about this than he's saying publicly. And we see little hints of that here and there. He tried to put Judy Shelton on the Federal Reserve Board. They all said, we can't have that. Somebody who knows our scam. So Donald Trump knows a lot about this. I'm encouraged by that because I think we're headed into a very serious financial crisis, a very, very serious economic crisis, maybe worse than anything we've seen in our lives. And there's really only two ways out of that. One way is the right way, where we go back to an honest monetary system. You get rid of the inflation tax. You get rid of the private cartel masquerading as a federal agency that creates currency out of nothing, loans it out at interest. And that's, of course, the way we should go. The other option, which they've been preparing for many decades, is to move that system to the international level, where the International Monetary Fund would then start issuing the new global reserve currency, probably in the form of special drawing rights, the SDRs, kind of a proto-global currency. And of course, that's the wrong way to go, but that's the way a lot of
New World Order crap right there.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
World government stuff.
So we're at a fork in the road, and Donald Trump is, as far as I'm concerned, the right man to lead us down the right side in that fork of the road when it comes. And again, I'm very confident, based on my discussions, based on what I've seen him say, that he gets it and he wants to do the right thing here.
So let's say at this point, just a couple of months in, that he goes away. God forbid he goes away for whatever reason. Does he have things in place that it would still continue on? Would we still be able to see this kind of relief and this change and this true, actual, real reset, and getting it back to we the people that he wants and has planned and has been very vocal about? He goes away. What happens?
It's a good question. Frankly, I'm not nearly as impressed with J.D. Vance as I have been with Donald Trump. He's saying the right things out on the speaking circuit. Don't get me wrong; he's saying all the right things, but that's because Donald Trump is the president and he's the vice president, and he wants to possibly be something more in the future. So I don't know what kind of contingency plans Donald Trump has put in place, but I do know that there's a lot of people around him who know what's up and who want the right thing. And there are also a lot of people around him who are very bad people and who want to manipulate him into doing exactly the wrong thing. So I'm not privy to any kind of contingency plans that may be there. I know Donald Trump's a real smart guy. And so I would hope that he would be preparing for at least the possibility of such an eventuality. But I don't have any information on whether he is or not.
Sam?
He hasn't called me and told me anything. So No. And the whole JD Vance thing, we have no idea, right? I mean, to me, he just stepped on the stage. I never really knew who he was, so we don't know. I mean, he does talk well. He's a good speaker, so maybe he shares the same agenda as Trump, and maybe he'll continue it on. But I don't have any idea. I'm just thankful that we're not in the position we were in, and that things are moving forward properly. I mean, I'm certainly not the expert, but when you go back to the Federal Reserve, I wouldn't be surprised if he took control of the Federal Reserve. I don't see any reason why. You're supposed to coin your own money. Alex, you know this, right?
That's
Okay.
what the Constitution says. Congress has the power to coin money.
Only the Congress. So the whole Federal Reserve thing was just all BS. It should have never happened. So he could easily seize that back and then ask for all the money that we spent in interest and go, wait, we owe 37 trillion. Here, don't worry about it. We're good. I mean, it could happen. And then what'll happen is, he could then immediately eliminate an income tax, which means now everybody is better off because he's got all the tariffs covered. And then the 9 blue states could go, wow, they're not taking federal income tax. That's how we could get more money out of people. So they can just start taxing you guys. They can take it from 10% to 40 because now you're not paying it to the federal government. Might as well pay it to us. It's not your money when it comes to the blue states. It's theirs. That's how they see it. So thank God that you got somebody like Trump in. And, when it comes to what we do, that's why, our platform is so important because you want to have a decentralized news business. You want to have free reporting, freedom of speech without censorship, right? I mean, Alex, I'm not in the news business. Both of you two are. You guys both have shows. I've never been in the media business. I'm in the platform business, but you want to have a free speech platform where people can, share news and information freely without the ability of censorship. And
No doubt.
Yeah.
Are we preaching to the choir for the most part, Alex? Because I see you just did a show recently about climate change. And it was fantastic, great guest. And I've been saying that all along out here in California. We have a couple, 2, 3 generations of kids who were brought up to think that the world is melting and it's awful and we're all going to die unless we do something now. I mean, how many times throughout the last several decades has some clown at the top said, we have 10 years left? Well, it was about 30, 40 years ago you said we had 10 years left. The whole thing is such a scam, and President Trump was so ridiculed for daring to say something like that. They're fooling you. They're fooling you. And look at all the slings and arrows he took for that. Are we changing hearts and minds? Because that's why they're getting away with a lot of stuff they're doing out here in California, the high fuel prices. We're going to tax them out of even being able to afford to put gasoline in their vehicles. We're going to force them to go electric, which when it comes to the environment is a catastrophic failure. It's not a clean way to power vehicles at all. Hydrogen would be much, much better, but nobody's talking about that. Are we swaying hearts and minds, or are we just preaching to the choir, Alex?
We're winning this debate, CharLee. In fact, the AP Nork Center for Public Affairs Research put out a poll last year where they found that most Americans reject the debunked hypothesis that human emissions of CO2 are causing climate change. Most Americans. You'll never see that in the media, even though they commissioned the poll. Most Americans don't believe them. And so here's the catch. Right, with the American public, we're winning. But there's 2 big things here. One, they're brainwashing the next generation to believe that we're going to die if we don't regulate and tax CO2, if we don't let the UN and the federal government.
10 years. We got 10 years.
That's right. And they've been saying that for a long time. Yep. The other thing, and I've asked a lot of members of Congress about this. In fact, I was on the Arabian Peninsula a couple of years ago for the UN COP28, and I asked 7 U.S. senators showed up, 6 Democrats and 1 Democrat pretending to be a Republican, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And I said to them, look, guys, it looks like Donald Trump's going to probably win the next presidential election. Most Americans, according to the polls, don't even believe you. What are you guys doing over here? Like, yeah, they were like Santa Claus on crystal meth, like presents for you and billions for you and billions for you. How are you guys making all these commitments when you're probably not going to have the presidency and most people don't believe you? And Senator Coons gave the answer for the whole panel. It was really, really clever. He said, yeah, Donald Trump probably wouldn't be a good president, but don't worry. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act. And through the Inflation Reduction Act, we're now sending billions of dollars to Republican states and Republican districts, getting these projects started where they're going to become dependent. There's going to be a political constituency. And so you're going to watch even the Republicans in Congress are now going to be jumping on the bandwagon. And sure enough, about 30 minutes before I came on this program with you today, Charlie, here's the headline from the Daily Caller. House Republicans line up to save Biden's legacy climate law, also known as the Inflation Reduction Act. So they were planning for this contingency. Speaking of contingency planning, they knew that the fraud would not hold forever. People would see through it, but they've still got their claws in us. And as Donald Trump said, one of the top priorities for the MAGA movement needs to be to crush this climate fraud. I agree with him 100%, but we're a long way from success in that battle, even though most Americans now agree that this is a fraud.
And that's something. So the best thing we can do, Alex, is just keep doing what we're doing. And the best thing you can do, Sam, is just keep offering us a platform to where we can get the word out to a greater audience. Thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, listen, I think you guys do great work. There's, so many of you. And so this is where we control, what we do is the mainstream media. You guys are much bigger than ABC, NBC, CNN, Fox, so on and so forth. And when you got one guy like Joe Rogan that's bigger than everyone combined, I mean, that tells you where the whole world's turning to. So, now we just need to focus on bringing on the news reporters on a local level, because local news is and always will be the backbone of a free society. Everything happens locally somewhere, right? So we need to be able to have that. And that's really what matters most to people, is what's happening around them in their communities. So that's what we're interested. We're excited to have Alex as part of this team, really, Charlie. I mean, that's the whole point of this whole show is, Alex has come on because I think he really saw the value here and said, how can I help? How can, if this is the next mainstream media, what could your skills be to be able to, make sure that the mess we were in before never happens again?
And you can, if you want to be a contributor, please reach out to Sam. Go to yournews.com, scroll all the way down at the bottom, and you'll see several choices there. Be a contributor or invest. Don't bet against Sam. I'm telling you what.
No, we will not. I won't lose this one. I won't stop until we're done. I got a lot of things happening.
You'll get a great return. I'm quite convinced in that. I'm glad to be a part of it. I consider it an honor and a privilege just to be, on the same platform as people like Alex Newman. But I'm a broadcaster, Alex. You're a real journalist. We broadcasters, all we have ever done our entire careers just about is just read things that you guys write. So thank you for that. I'm glad you're on our side. But who are your heroes? Who do you look to as like they really shaped the direction that my life headed?
That's a list that would be way too long to go through. I'm actually reading an incredible book right now called 20th Century Heroes, just from the 20th century. Incredible people. But I would go back to, of course, the biblical characters, Moses and Daniel and Elijah and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And, fast forward some, King Alfred. In the 9th century, one of the heroes of liberty. I mean, people don't even remember his name anymore. He was the first guy that really tried to create a legal code based on Christian principles that facilitated freedom. You look at the guys that raised up the army of God and forced King John Lackland to sign the Magna Carta that paved the way to create a parliament. And now, of course, in the United States, a Congress. You look at people like Oliver Cromwell, who said, no, we're not going to just bow down to whatever crazy tyranny you come up with, King Charles. And he raised up an army and resisted and won. Thankfully, they ended up putting the king on trial for treason. So, going through history, there's just so many people. The founding fathers, Samuel Adams, was incredible, right? He's often called the father of the revolution. And he started the committees of correspondence. They didn't have big tech censorship back in the day, but they did have efforts to stop the free flow of information. They didn't want local newspapers publishing the truth for people. They didn't want local people communicating with each other from town to town. And so Samuel Adams set up a communications network, the committees of correspondence, to help get the word out so that Americans would know what was really going on and what they had to do to protect their lives, their liberty, and their property. So these are some of the wonderful heroes down through the ages who have paved the way for us to live as free human beings today. I just gave a talk about this earlier today to a Republican women's group in Central Florida. And we've got to honor those heroes who in many cases sacrificed everything they had, including in some cases their lives, so that we could be free today. And one little way that we can honor them is by doing what we can to preserve that legacy, to preserve that heritage for future generations.
Alex, do you like ribeye steak?
I love it.
Okay. Next time you're out here in California, I'm serious. Give me a call, give me a text, and I'll treat you to dinner at my favorite steak place.
You're on.
Sam, you're on your own. If you're out here at the same time, you're buying. But where do we find what you're doing, Alex? How do we follow what you're doing, Alex Newman?
So a lot of my stuff is going to be now at yournews.com. People can go there, yournews.com. I'm an advisor now, and I intend to deepen my relationship with what's going on there. My personal website is libertysentinel.org. We put out a free newsletter, and you can find all our shows and things like that either at my website or at rumble.com. I serve as senior editor for The New American. I write for a lot of publications in the United States and abroad, but my personal website will take you to most of that, libertysentinel.org.
Thank you for doing what you're doing and keep fighting the good fight, my friend. And Sam, I think we know where to find you.
Yeah, I'll probably be on here next week, huh, Charlie? Charlie and I talk all the time, right? That we were thinking about doing a show with beers. We're just hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. Just sitting around a table having some Sam Adams.
There you go.
By the way, isn't it ironic that history just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again?
Why is that? Why do we never seem to learn our lessons? Because we stop reading history, and history is not taught anymore, and civics is not even included in high school and college curriculums now. We don't. That's what the left does. I'm quite convinced, and that's part of the Communist Manifesto, isn't it, Alex? Just take away their history, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And their property and their family and everything, their nation. So, yeah, we're not going to stand for it.
Unbelievable. I wonder, as we start scaling this up and you get millions of content creators, you can't really stop it all, right? I mean, that's just an engine that just won't quit. So I think this puts the nail in the coffin. Everybody's trying to solve the problem. And, we need, Public Square did the whole, we need to buy from like-minded people, right? Parallel economies and stuff like that. But the real solution is controlling the press, right? Or not so much controlling it, but decentralizing it, allowing free speech, which puts all the proper information out, and the people are smart enough to figure this stuff out themselves. Okay. That's why I kept telling you when you said we had a divided country, I'm like, no, it's not. It's 90-10. There's nobody that dumb. There's not that many people that dumb. So, and what I was right. It was 86.7 to, 13 or something like that when it came to the county map. This is, I actually believe what we do is going to be the nail in the coffin. And the good news is the legacy media is going out of business. So all we have to do is just scale this up at a rapid pace. So that's why the whole investment thing. This is why I'm selling this to the people and not to institutions. So anybody interested in investing, just go to the website, go to the bottom, click invest, and you can read about what we're doing. You can spend $200, but we want the people to own the business, not the institutional players. This is why I think that's probably one of the most attractive things you saw, huh, Alex?
Absolutely.
All the investors, the guys from Canada said, how are you going to keep the institutional players from buying? And I took them to my dashboard and I opened somebody and it says return funds. You just hit a button, boom, gone. You could get rid of people if you don't want them. So
that's excellent. I love it. And it is the future of filmmaking, television production, so many things now, this whole crowdfunding. I love it because it does put things back into we the people's hands, doesn't it now?
It's technology that's replacing Silicon Valley. Guys, this is not just this. I mean, I was in that business for years. This is like, it opens you up to everybody. You can have, there's billions of people out there and anybody can make an investment. We're getting investments in Australia and Canada. And somebody did it from Israel, Ireland. I mean, you're getting money in from all these places. These people had no way of finding out who you are. And all of a sudden now they're like, this is cool. Now I got people asking me to open up their country. I had a journalist come on from Beirut. Is that crazy or what?
No,
so
it's just the beginning. Actually. It's encouraging. Exactly. It's encouraging.
This is why I'm excited to have Alex, because Alex sees the big picture and, Alex could bring a lot of value to the table, CharLee. Just like, by the way, CharLee and I, the last show we did was 3, 4, 5 days ago. 120,000 people watched. 120,000. It's a record.
So far.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. Thank you, Sam. And Alex, anytime you got so much going on. You got your own show. You got so many things happening. The fact that you took an hour out of your day to be on my little old show just means the world to me. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it very much, CharLee. I look forward to seeing you in California.
I'm looking forward to that too. All right. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Alex. And thank you for liking, subscribing, supporting, sharing. You share these shows through rumble.com/DoNotTalk. You'll help us grow that way tremendously. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.